Design is actually the applied science. You understand we have the Newton's laws of motion. The reason why you're seated in that seat and you're not falling is because the seat you're sitting on is able to generate equal but directly opposite weight to what you're exerting on the seat. And that is a simple way of explaining forces that apply to a building. Now, in a building situation, the structural engineer comes to design so that the building can stand structurally to withstand the forces of nature. The forces of nature include we have wind, we have earthquakes, but also stand its own weight, because when you're talking about of a structure, it has imposed loads, which is the occupancy. It also has a self-weight, which is the column, the steel. They come with their own weight. And therefore, the structural engineer comes in to provide structural design. And we design for safety. We design for economy. We design for functionality and reliability to make sure that your building, not only will it carry its own weight, it will also carry the weight of the occupants. Now that's very important, because buildings literally collapse on structural issues largely. And therefore it's very important as a developer and investor to have and retain the services of a structural engineer. The structural engineer will get to understand the soil conditions of what you're dealing with. And we get that from geotechnical investigations. We have a geotechnical report that gives us soil bearing pressure. And then based on the soil bearing capacity, we design the foundation to be able to carry your building. We design the columns that are supposed to carry a load actually. And we also have beams. We have slabs. And we have roofs, and all these manner of elements that put together, designed by a structural engineer, enable the building to stand and make sure it doesn't collapse. Whenever there is a wind hitting the building, whenever there is a seismic action or earthquakes and all that. And therefore, we cannot overemphasize the fact that the structural engineer is very critical to make sure a building stands. But we also need to mention the fact that the comfort and livability of a building requires other engineers. Electrical engineers, for example. We know we are dealing with power, the lighting of this room. Electrical engineers are required. We also require mechanical engineers who carry out heating, ventilation, and air conditioning to make sure that there is comfort, livability of the building, and all that. But every developer must get the services of a structural engineer to make sure that the structural design of a building is sound and to achieve what we call structural integrity, without which then buildings are subject to collapse.
So if anything goes wrong, the first stop should be at the structural engineer's door, isn't it?
Well, that's what I say, that buildings collapse largely because of structural reasons, that we have compromised structural integrity. And that is why it is very important to understand whenever there is a collapse, what costs the compromise of the structural integrity of the structure. And that is why we must really make it very clear to everyone that you need the services of a qualified, experienced, trained, licensed, professional structural engineer in your project.
All right. Now,